Hi everybody, hope you're okay. Happy Halloween. Today, I'm starting the video here in Todmorden Hippodrome. The set has just been removed for Joseph, which finished last night. But for almost 20 years now, I've been stood on this stage in various guises. But the very first time I was here, I always told a story about something that happened up here. Because the first person who directed me here told me that there was a ghost on the balcony watching, and often to lock this place you have to walk through, lock it in the darkness. The best thing you can do is speak to the ghost. But that's a story that's been passed down and has been told many times. But we're going to leave the ghost of the Hippodrome here, as well as the ghosts of Todmorden, and head to another part of Calderdale for today's Halloween story. Let's head to Sowerby, above Sowerby Bridge. So I'm currently en route to Sowerby Village, which is about a mile uphill from Sowerby Bridge. The weather today is perfect for ghost stories. So our first story takes place in the 1950s in a spot in Sowerby called Towngate, and specifically the hauntings of number 59. So in 1955, a house in Sowerby Village hit newspaper headlines after reports of supernatural events. Number 59 Towngate was occupied at the time by Doreen Georgeson, her husband Bogdan, and their 18-month-old daughter Katerina. Bogdan was a Polish immigrant, and they lived here for 3 years. So Sowerby Bridge Urban District Council, who owned the property, had a very strange report from the family that they had found that the property was no longer livable, and the mother and child had moved in with the mother's mother at number 53 Towngate, and the husband, Bogdan, had to move into accommodation in Halifax for him to get to work in Shelf. Although they'd been in their home for 3 years, in the few months before they left, they'd experienced strange rushing noises in the night. Pots and pans would clatter in the kitchen in the early hours, banging noises, doors opening and closing. The living room is said to have icy patches even when there was a full roaring fire, and the dog would also cower behind the sofa, whimpering in fear. On one occasion, Doreen's father went and stayed overnight in the property, and he wrote the next day, "I took Lassie, my dog, with me. She leapt and whined in terrible fright. I saw a sudden glow, a glow of golden light coming from the bedroom stairs. At other times there have been lights seen in the house in the earlier hours, even though no one was in the house. The neighbours at number 57, the Smithson family, were a married couple with 3 children, and they complained to the family at 59 about the noise. But they were also stunned when the family had moved out of 59 that those noises continued late into the night. After it had been in the press, a local water diviner and 2 other people came to spend the night in the property. They wrote about their experience as well. Whilst there, he reported that the walls between 57 and 59 vibrated horrendously, and he even took his water divinity stick and it snapped when he put it against the wall. The next thing they experienced was them being dragged towards the wall by some entity. The next visitor to the house was a spiritualist from Keighley who claimed it was the spirit of Bogdan's dead mother attempting to contact her son. However, the family never returned to number 59. The family at 57 moved out, and eventually the whole area was cleared for new housing estate at Towngate. So do you think it was Bogdan's mother? Or do you think there was something explainable happening at that house? And even though the buildings have been destroyed, whatever's in its place, one has to wonder if the poltergeist is still there. So this is the Towngate area. This is where the original Towngate houses were demolished and replaced. Looks like there's a house here that's had a bit of a hard time. 2 of them have. So just on here we'll find the new 59 Towngate. Just here. So I'm currently on Haw End Lane, and one of the houses here is also reportedly haunted. Maybe it's this one. Right, this house has a blue plaque on it, and it's for John Tillotson, who is apparently a former Archbishop of Canterbury. Interesting fact for you, Matthew Parker is also a former Archbishop of Canterbury. Not me. Okay, so it's hidden behind the trees, but this is Haw End House. This was built in 1760, and it's said to be haunted just by the ghost of a woman. I know nothing more than that. For a better look at the house, you'd be better watching Gentleman Jack, which is where it's featured recently, apparently. Although the poltergeist story may have ended in 1959 at the demolition of the house, in 1960, not far from here, another strange event began to occur. In this graveyard is buried Captain John Jennings, and he built and was the first landlord of the Star Inn. When he died, a few years after opening the Star Inn in 1798, his widow, Alice Jennings, went on to marry a constable from Sowerby Bridge. His name was John Whiteley, and he was affectionately known as John Almighty Whiteley, also Boniface John. And whilst as a constable, he'd captured criminals who had been sent to jail, even sent to the gallows in York. He wasn't a particularly popular man. He was also given the description of being a lynx-eyed thief catcher. Now, Whiteley himself could have a video all to himself, because there's quite a big record of things that he did over time, including eventually running foul of the law himself, and also spending the last 7 years of his life in a workhouse. He's also buried in this graveyard, but unfortunately he's in an unmarked grave. If he ever left Sowerby at all. So we're heading towards the Rushcart Inn, and see, we're still on Towngate, and the Rushcart Inn is the new name of what is now obviously formerly the Star Inn. Here it is. So this was the Star Inn, and for quite a few decades there was a painting of Mr. Whiteley on the wall. In recent times it's even been suggested that the painting might have been done by Branwell Bronte, and it wouldn't be too far removed from the truth, because Branwell worked at the train station office at Ludden Foot at the time, which isn't too far from here. When 1960 came round, there were suddenly many bizarre occurrences happening at the pub that seemed to be caused by the painting of Whiteley. Those sounds of singing, doors opening and closing, latches rattling on doors. The portrait was taken down and placed in the loft, and those occurrences suddenly stopped. But when a new landlord took over and got the painting out and stuck it back on the wall, the occurrences began again. So the painting was sold to a Mr. Alan Kenny, who lived in Keighley. It was placed in his 17th century farmhouse in an archway. But any visitors to the house who were near the painting felt very cold. Once again, the house was heated by an Aga, yet there was a freezing spot just where the painting was. They would also start experiencing similar activities that had been happening in the pub, door latches being rattled up and down. But the most frightening occurrence was yet to come. Bizarrely, the painting had been hung in the bedroom of their newly born child. Like all parents, at that point, when the baby is newborn and no longer in their room, it was in its own room with this painting. And listening on their baby monitor to their baby breathing, they were very, very shocked. And all of a sudden they heard the singing of Brahms' lullaby. Whilst Mrs. Kenny listened to the monitor, Mr. Kenny crept to their child's room, and whilst ascending the stairs to the bedroom, he could hear the singing from the other side of the door, and it was only when he actually opened the door the singing stopped altogether and there was silence. The next stop for the painting was bizarrely the Antiques Roadshow. So the Kennys took their painting to the Antiques Roadshow, and there they saw art expert Philip Mould. Mould commented on how ugly Whiteley was in the painting, and as he said it, a glass frame holding newspaper clippings of Whiteley suddenly shattered. It hadn't been touched or anything like that. It shocked Mould, the Kennys and everybody watching, and it was especially creepy as the Kennys had already explained some of the mysterious happenings that they'd experienced whilst the painting was in their possession. After the show had aired, the daughter of a previous landlord of the Star Inn contacted Mr. Kenny urgently because she had news herself about the painting's activities in the 1960s. She told the Kennys that in 1960 she'd had a baby. Unfortunately, the baby had eventually died. That baby had had a teddy bear. And the teddy bear, if you pressed its paw, would play Brahms' lullaby. Happy Halloween, guys. Don't have nightmares. See you soon.